Happy Thursday and happy February, everyone. Welcome back to Sojern's fifth and final installation of our Digital 101 webinar series for travel marketers. While we continue to share information and data points in regards to COVID-19 and how it's impacting our industry, we wanted to utilize this unique opportunity it has provided to reset, refocus, and bring things back to the basics, which is why we began this journey back in October in an effort to dive into the fundamentals that will help travel marketers drive revenue and brand awareness in and outside of a global pandemic. For those of you joining for the first time, I'm Molly Shane, a senior sales executive with Sojern, focusing on our SMB and agency clients. And these last months, I've gotten to spend time with you all as the moderator of the series. So if you'd like to check out the previous episodes where we covered programmatic display advertising, search engine marketing, social advertising on Facebook and Instagram, and then how each of these channels interacts to build a comprehensive marketing plan, feel free to go check those out on sojern.com. So I'm really excited for the agenda we have today. We move our focus to Metasearch today. So we will look at where Metasearch fits into that traveler path to purchase, the bidding strategy that goes into each and every meta ad served, how to optimize your meta campaign, and take a peek at performance before jumping into our live Q&A session with today's fabulous presenters. And also, I want to just really quick let everyone know that if you're not able to spend the full hour with us, we will be distributing the recording via email, so you can catch up with us later. For those of you not familiar with Sojern, we are a travel data company specializing in highly targeted online marketing campaigns for hotel, attraction, and destination clients. Real-time travel intent information paired with over a decade of data science allows us to find new guests, introduce them to your brand, and then ultimately move them from that dreaming stage all the way to the destination in the form of a direct booking. We have three Metasearch experts presenting for us today. First, joining us, we have Google's Partner Development Manager, Cliff Galitz. Cliff, do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Sure. My name is Cliff Galitz. I'm based in the Chicago area. I've been with Google for almost 10 years now, and I've been working in the hotel space for about 5. Our business development team is connected to that travel search product area.
Perfect. That was great. Presenting alongside Cliff is Sojern's own principal product manager, Sasha Lien. Sasha, can you share a bit about your background as well?
Sure. My name is Sasha Lien, and principal product manager at Sojern, but responsible for new initiatives here at the company. I've been with Sojern for 2 years, but I have spent over 25 years in the online media business.
Great. And finally, all the way from Paris in the dark is Sojern's senior Metasearch analyst, Bastien Dion. Bastien, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. So my name is Bastien Dion. I'm a Metasearch analyst here at Sojern. I joined this company 3 years ago, but I've been working in the hospitality industry for about 13 years. Spent most of my career at working for Accor Hotel, so in various segments, ranging from group leisure sales to connected tour operators, OTAs, and I ended managing the Metasearch global campaign for that chain during 4 years.
Awesome, thank you. And a quick reminder that we are hosting a live Q&A session with Cliff, Sasha, and Bastien following the presentation. So submit your questions throughout the webinar for us using the webinar control panel on the right-hand side there. And with that said, all right, presenters, over to you.
Great. Well, I'll start things off really by saying with any channel you're considering, you want to know that there's an audience there and there's a large one. And this stat proves it. 75% of travelers are believed to use Metasearch engines in their destination searches, and search and Metasearch engines in particular have become an essential path for how travelers interact with hotel brands through their path to purchase. Next slide. And this is why Metasearch is so important. We can go beyond that compelling stat and say that Metasearch also has become an essential channel for a hotel to find success in driving direct bookings, as evidenced by the fact that we have so many registrants for this webinar. But 2/3 of independent hotels receive direct bookings from Metasearch engines. 13% of direct bookings come from Metasearch, and 60% of independent hoteliers rank Metasearch as very or most effective for marketing as a core driver of how a hotel gains more visibility in the marketplace. Next slide. And at Sojern, our solutions run the breadth of the path to purchase we see happening every day. And within that path, there are three distinct phases. In the discover phase, travelers are dreaming about their next destination and just starting to think about where they're going and what they're going to do and where they want to stay. And in the plan stage, travelers have a destination and dates in mind and use Metasearch to look for information and options for accommodation. In the book phase, as the name implies, users are ready to book and have hotel choices narrowed down with dates in mind. So at this point, they're looking at their price options and will choose a price that fits their needs. Often this means they will look at the lowest price, but more savvy users will check many sources, including your site, to understand what this pricing will give to them. So while Metasearch plays its biggest role in the book phase, your presence as an option for users is incredibly important for travelers who are planning their stay. And if you are using marketing channels for branding, you want to make sure that your audience knows they can continue this initial relationship all the way through to booking. There's very often times where I see fantastic branding and consideration campaigns, but then when you actually are getting to the point where they want to keep interacting with the hotel itself, it can be difficult if you don't have a presence in Metasearch and also for SEM for that matter. And for this, I'll pass it back to Bastian to provide a more detailed overview of Metasearch.
Yeah, so we can move directly to the next slide. So the first thing we wanted to do with this overview, we wanted to start by answering one question. What is the difference between OTAs and Metasearch? So everything on the left of this slide are OTAs. So I'm sure you know them. They are a major distribution channel in the industry. And those players are building their own inventory. Sometimes they are contracting with hoteliers indirect. Sometimes they rely on intermediaries. But what you need to consider for the comparison is that A, the transaction to the booking is always happening on their website, and B, they will own the guest relationship. So if a guest wants to cancel or modify the booking, they will reach out to the OTA customer service. So now everything on the right is marketing, so channels that can be used to generate traffic to your website. Metasearch are content aggregators, so they are displaying inventories and rates from several advertisers for the same property and same date. So the users on those sites are browsing to collect information, then and clicking on an ad, and then are redirected to the website of the selected advertiser. So here, provided your ad is clicked, the conversion will be happening on your website, and you will own the guest relationship. This is for the big picture. Now, just to nuance this a little bit, I would like to mention that there is an interesting variety of business models and technical models within the Metasearch space. For example, most publishers are or have been proposing instant booking models where transaction is happening actually on the Metasearch website. So, for example, Book on Google or TripAdvisor instant booking, just to name a few. But Metasearch are doing that to maximize performance, specifically on mobile. That's not really mainstream, and in this scenario, hotels are still owning the guest relationship. So that's really where we draw the line between the two categories. We can move to the next slide. So now we'd like to explain a little bit more where do Metasearch campaigns are appearing. So there's actually two main categories of websites where you can find a Metasearch ad. The first category, I would call them the pure player. So the price comparison website, they are dedicated to travel. So you probably know the big names, so TripAdvisor, Trivago, Hotels Combined, which core product is really hotel, or Kayak, Wigo, Skyscanner, which core product is flight, but that also have built their own inventory, their own product for hotels. So those sites are investing millions of dollars in online and TV advertising to remain top of mind. And on those sites, hotel ads, your ads will appear either on destination listing or on your own hotel listing. And what is interesting for you is that prior finding your ads, the user either entered the name of your destination somewhere or the name of your hotel in the search bar of the website, for example, or the Metasearch website, for example. That is the first reason why the traffic generated by Meta is highly qualified. And if we move to the next slide, there is a second category. So this second category of sites is search engine. So the majority of them, including Google, but also Bing, Yandex, Baidu, have specific ad placements that are optimized for hotels. and they choose to display this enhanced content for search results page where users are clearly searching for a specific hotel or location. And I will stop here, and I think that's a good transition for Cliff, who's going to explain to you how Google Hotel Ad is working a little bit more in detail.
Great, thanks, Bastien. Hey, before I get started, I'd just like to take a minute and thank Sojern and the team for allowing Google to participate in the webinar. Molly, Lena, and the team have been great, and we'd like to thank them very much for their partnership. Bastien did a great job of providing an overview of the various Metasearch platforms and search engines that you can use to generate direct leads to your property and the advertising opportunities that they represent. Specific to Google, we offer hotel ads on 3 different platforms: Google Search, Google Maps, and the Google Assistant. And these present an opportunity to reach over 1 billion users a week with information about your property and potentially direct leads. Maps in particular is one surface that folks tend to overlook, but we estimate that 1 in 3 hotel queries start via Maps and 1 in 4 bookings start via Maps. So definitely consider that as you look to round out your marketing portfolio. Next slide, please. However, backing up just a bit, hotel ads are really only one way that you can reach Google users in the hotel search product. This is an example of the search results page for a search for a specific hotel property. In this case, it's Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And the left-hand side of the page is probably pretty typical to search results pages you're used to seeing on Google. There are potentially some text ads at the top of the page, followed by organic listings that are, pertaining to the property that the user searched for. And then on the right-hand side of the page, there's a property details card with a lot of content, photos, etc., that I'll talk about in a bit of a minute, along with unpaid links to the property website and phone number, and hotel ads below that. On the next page, we'll show a search for a destination. So now, rather than searching for a specific property, the user in this case has searched just for the Las Vegas market. And again, the results are similar, where there are maybe text ads at the top of the page, and then there are organic links to information about the Las Vegas destination. And included in that organic content is a hotel search unit that's kind of highlighted there as a box. This shows, various information about top properties in the market, a small map that shows where some of the hotels are clustered. And users can quickly click on that unit and either go to a full listing of all the hotels that we have identified in the market, or they can use some of those quick filters there to look for properties that are of specific interest to them. So, maybe it's budget, maybe it's luxury, maybe they're looking for, hotels with a certain attribute. It's really a quick filter way for users to move down that funnel and move into their further research phase. So if you go to the next slide, the left-hand side will show an example on a mobile device this time rather than desktop of that overall hotel listing, where users can scroll down, filter, change their dates, and see the various hotels that are available in the market on the dates that they've chosen. And then once they find a property they'd like to drill in on and learn more about, they can click on that card. In this case, it's the Intercontinental, and they see a lot of information about the property. So the property card contains a lot of information about amenities available at the property that are sourced from Google My Business as well as third parties, user reviews that are sourced both from Google users as well as trusted third parties, including Expedia brands, and hotel photos that are both provided by the hotel, third parties, and user-generated content from folks that have visited the hotel in the past. And again, this property detail cards include unpaid links to the hotel website, directions to the property, as well as a phone number for the property. And then below that, there are hotel ads. So this would be, again, Sasha alluded to it, highly qualified leads that have now moved down the funnel. They're really interested in your property. We show them typically 4 booking channel partners with the rates that have been provided for the stay by each of those channel partners. And then there's an additional rate tab where we might show up to 12 different channel booking partners and their in particular rates for the stay. So now I think I will throw it back to Sojern to discuss Metasearch ads in a bit more detail.
Sure, and if you go to the next slide, I think I'll probably just kind of expand on what Cliff said, right? So it's really sort of going into how Metasearch works. fundamentally, this really starts when a traveler is searching for a room on a Metasearch website. And really what Metasearch does, it's the combination of rates and availability and the bidding that really makes this so powerful, because essentially what we're doing is we're bringing the booking engine experience to the forefront of those searches. So essentially what we're doing is we are passing back rates and availability. We want to make sure that those rates are accurate, because when a user goes to the landing page, they want to make sure that that is the rate that they're going to encounter. But the rates and availability is across the gamut of dates and options, right? So that's definitely something that we have a depth infrastructure in order to support that process. But on the other side of that is really sort of the bidding that we do on behalf of the hotel, which is fundamentally focused on just generating clicks. But we want to try and generate clicks that are going to lead to a conversion, and in this case, a booking. So that's what's really important for us, and what Bastian and myself are constantly sort of trying to figure out is what is the most effective way of making sure that your hotel is appearing in those results. And if they do appear in those in those results, that they're going to click to book to go to the booking experience on your hotel booking engine platform. So we want to make sure that we're doing this cost effectively. And there are many reasons why a user would want to come to your hotel versus others. There definitely are more savvy users out there that know that if they go to your site, they may actually get some benefits with booking directly with you. So that's definitely one of the things that it's important to note. It's like you're starting to build that relationship with the user as soon as they're coming to your site, especially when it comes from Metasearch. And the other advantage, and I'll focus on Sojern a little bit, is that this is not the only channel that we participate in. We use a multi-channel performance solution that really is joining the channels that we participate in this case, Metasearch, SEM, Display, and Facebook, that tracks campaign performance across those channels and avoids duplicate conversion counting. So that is definitely something that you also want to make sure you're considering, is that along the path to purchase, they can encounter many of the advertising programs that you have. But we're here to make sure that we're effectively doing that and measuring unique activity. So we go to the next slide. Ash.
Yes, okay, so now let's have a look on how a Metasearch ad is structured. So here it is an example of the hotel listing on TripAdvisor. So again, before landing here, so the user either entered the name of the hotel in the search bar. It may be also after a click on an ad from TripAdvisor on Google, for example. So it's a qualified lead, I would say, before you come here. And one thing to note is that Metasearch is only one placement out of other products. So often publishers are offering other products. If you have a look below the hotel name here, you will find the TripAdvisor Business Advantage, for example. So that's just to reset the fact that Meta is one out of several products. And the Metasearch is really this white box here on the left, and it's composed of two different things. So you will find a search bar where the user can enter specific dates, so and the number of guests, and sometimes not for all Meta, but they can add additional info like the number of children, their age, so just to have like the most qualified results. And B, you will find a list of advertisers that are presenting the rates. So usually it's your direct website ad against 10 or more OTAs. And note that, in case you are not participating with your direct campaign, OTAs will still be there and will capture 100% of the traffic. So according to the search made, as Sasha explained in the last slide, so rates will be updated dynamically and pulled from the different sources of inventory. And the way rates are displayed is then adapted to the user location. So taxis, presentation, and currency will be adapted. So everything is really made to make the user's life as easy as possible. And as Cliff explained, so the rest of the content, will be pulled from different sources. So it could be trusted partners, could be, other sources. And in few cases, you can still access and manage a part of the content. So for example, if you have an access to TripAdvisor, to the external to reply to guest reviews, there you can update a part of the content. Same thing for the Google My Business listing that we can update partially. So now let's have a closer look at the way the users are redirected to your website. So here unlike the other forms of online advertising, display, social, SEM, which are all redirecting to the website homepage after you click on the ad, Meta is different. And Meta is redirecting the user one step further in the booking funnel, so directly to the search page with pre-selected dates and the number of gates. So basically, you will find the rate that was advertised on the Metasearch platform will be displayed on the to the user in your booking funnel. So this is the second reason why the clicks generated by Metasearch campaigns have the highest conversion rate. So conversion rate is the number of booking you can generate divided by the number of clicks. And that's the highest conversion rate of all marketing channels. And for example, if we compare Meta with search engine marketing, which is the second highest channel in terms of conversion, for a brand keyword on desktop, you will convert 2% of the time on SEM, whereas with Google Hotel Ads, it's 4.5, so that's more than the double. So that's why Meta is super impactful.
So this is actually kind of a continuation of kind of the slide that I just did, right? Which is actually kind of going one level deeper and it's kind of looking at the back end a little bit. There's definitely a version of this chart that we use internally, which is like 3 times the amount of lines and boxes, but we wanted to make sure that it's understood. It can be very complicated, rates and bid management for Metasearch. But fundamentally, it's actually focused on 2 things. It's rates and availability, getting access to that and making sure that we are able to display accurate rates on Metasearch engines. And then the bidding to make sure that we are putting the pricing in a position that will generate a click and lead to a conversion. So if we kind of look at this, you're probably familiar with a lot of this if you work with OTAs, that you are building a feed, a pricing feed that you're sending to an OTA. It's very similar to what you would do for Metasearch, right? And we work with many different booking engines and channel managers who are actually creating feeds specifically for Metasearch to make sure that they're able to apportion those feeds and make sure that they're accurate. So those are kind of the 2 main elements that we interact with, which is the booking engine and the channel manager. And that's usually managed through a third party, right? Because not only are we receiving the rates and the availability, we also need to make sure that we're curating it specifically for Metasearch. And then usually that third party is responsible for connecting that ARI feed to the Metasearch channels. So we work with a couple of partners to make sure that that happens. But there's definitely a lot of coordination that occurs between us and the hotel and the booking engine. And that's one of the reasons why you want to work with someone like Sojern, is because we're the ones who absorb that complicated sort of infrastructure that needs to happen in order to make it work. Now, the net result of that is that we're now able to bid on those on that pricing feed that you're sending to us. So a very similar relationship happens where there are campaign management options for all of these different Metasearch partners. And there's a lot of third parties that interact with them through a bidding API or a feed, right? So that is essentially kind of what is happening, is the combination of those 2 things that makes Metasearch happen. Next slide.
Yeah, so the intent of this slide is to give you an overview on how those platforms are working. So there's one thing you need to know, that each platform is works differently. So that's what makes Meta pretty complex. So first thing, Metasearch sites have different ad formats, so and different ranking and sometimes different bidding logic. So for example, if you have a look at the ad layout, so the format of the ad, you will see that some publishers display 4, 3, or just 1 ad at a time. So this has an impact on traffic. So, and even if we take this example here, you can imagine that for each position, so rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, the volume you can get, but also the quality of the traffic will be different. So I'll take another example with TripAdvisor again. So you can see here we have 3 ads with a similar real estate. So here the click curve will be soft. So rank 1 will be capturing 60% of the traffic, and you can see rank 2 15 and rank 3 10%. So that's pretty soft. If I take the opposite example, which is Trivago, you can see that on Trivago, if we go to the next click, you will see an example of Trivago where top position is really capturing 90% of the traffic. And this has an impact on the ecosystem. So people have to be more aggressive to be collecting a share of the traffic. So note that quite often position 1 is not always sustainable for independent hotels, because CPC are higher and conversion rate tends to be lower on those positions. So of course, with differences from one platform to the other, but that's the general trend. That's also why you often see OTAs in premium positions from most of the platforms. Platform rules are also very different. So some websites allow you to bid differently on mobile versus desktop, some don't. Some give you the possibility to adjust bids per according to check-in day of the week, per lead time, length of stay, some don't. Some offer only cost per click optimization strategies. Some will provide like a broader range of options, such as commission per booking or even sometimes commission on the guest stay. Some offer all of them. So the key takeaway on that slide is that ad formats, auction models, bidding options available are impacting greatly the performance we can make out of those different publishers. And I think, yeah, Cliff is going to explain a little bit more how that reflects on Google Ads.
Yeah, thank you, Bastian. I'll take over here and talk a little bit about hotel ads bidding on Google. I can't recall if my slides might be off. Okay, I'll just want to quickly mention that Sasha had mentioned integration points. For Google hotel ads in particular, there's really 3 pieces of information that we ask for from the advertisers. The first is a list of properties that you might be interested in bidding on. That can be provided at one time and then with periodic updates. And we use that to match what your opinion of a property is compared to how we view that property on maps and other listings. The second piece of data we ask for is really more of a real-time feed of pricing and availability information, along with the referral information. So when a user clicks on that ad and that price, where do they go on your website? And then lastly, of course, would be the bids for the auctions for hotel ads placements for those specific properties and itineraries. It's common for hotel suppliers to manage all this information through a third party, as Sasha mentioned. If you back up one slide, please. I just wanted to mention that it's important to note that hotel ads are different from text ads and that they are not based on keywords. So you might be used to search ads and bidding on terms such as budget property in Chicago. But as shown in this example, hotel ads and bids would really be placed specifically on this intercontinental mag mile property for these specific dates that have been set by the user. Now you can go to the next slide. Thanks. And so with that in mind, one of the most common questions we get is, how are the various booking channel partners ranked with their hotel ads? And this is really based on 3 factors that we're showing here. The first is the overall price for the itinerary. In other words, how much is this itinerary going to cost the user to stay? And as I had mentioned earlier, every hotel advertiser provides their own rates. And then the second is a quality score for the partner. So this is largely based on price accuracy for that advertiser. So we want to be sure that the prices that are seen in the hotel ads are the actual prices that are reflected on the website, and that they're not higher or lower, so that either A, the user thinks like, oh, they're trying to bait and switch me, or B, the user starts to lose confidence in the overall platform. So price accuracy is a really important factor for all of our advertisers. And lastly is the actual bid for the itinerary. With all things being equal, the highest bid would get the highest placement in the listing of different booking channel partners. And as with other search ads, there's a second price auction dynamic happening here. So the amount you bid in total might not be the actual price you pay for the click. It depends on what other folks are doing as well. And I'll go into this in a bit more detail on subsequent slides, but all advertisers have a number of bid levers available to them. Sasha kind of alluded to it, in order to attract the best users for their marketing goals. With Google Hotel Ads, this includes device type, the actual search platform, the user location, and various itinerary factors, length of stay, advanced purchase, etc. And beyond those manual levers, Google offers a lot of automation that can help identify even more user signals and intent to help boost return on hotel ad spend. If you go to the next slide, please. Just as a quick example here, not a lot of math involved, but if I was managing a hotel in Munich, for example, I might set a base bid for clicks to the property. And then I might have an adjustment that I really want to attract users on a mobile device. And I might have a further adjustment that I really want to attract users on that mobile device that are based in Germany. So at the bottom, might be a little bit tough to read, but on the left-hand side, there's a gentleman named Sandeep who's considering the property. And on the right-hand side, there's a user named Jacqueline that's also considering the property. So if you go to the next slide, please. Because this can get pretty complicated, advertisers can rely on smart signals from Google. So for this example, bids might be adjusted up for the user on the right, Jacqueline, who we see is signed into her device. She's actually in Munich at the moment. It's the evening, she's in the local market, and she's searching for a hotel near me, which would really kind of indicate that she's got a higher probability to book than the user Sandeep, who's actually in a different city at the moment. It's earlier in the afternoon. It's maybe a little bit further from the actual booking moment. So perhaps this user is just still doing some research and not really ready to book. And our smart adjustments can help you identify those different sorts of users. Next slide, please. So that was pretty granular example. Hopefully it gives you a flavor for some of the levers that are available to you. But in broad buckets, there's really two ways to manage hotel ad spend. The first is shown on the left, which would be manual CPC bidding for all particular itineraries that a user might be considering. And those bids can be placed either on an absolute value basis, so for example, $1 per click, or the bids can be based on a percentage of the itinerary value. So if it was a one-night stay at $100 and you wanted to bid 1% on that, that would be an equivalent $1 bid, but it would be based on the value of the stay rather than an absolute $1. And on the right-hand side, as I kind of mentioned, there's a lot of different smart bidding options available to you. These can be everywhere from just additional user signals to more robust automation like cost per stay or cost per booking. And they normally are a lower touch option for advertisers, but they do require some additional implementation of conversion tracking to allow that automation to work. And whichever path might be best for you, it's certainly perfectly fine for a third party to help you automate or implement that bidding strategy. Next slide, please. Last point I'd like to make is these different bidding options can really help you mitigate risk as well. And if you look on the far left-hand side, if you're bidding on a pure CPC basis and not really relying on any automation, you're kind of taking it entirely upon yourself to place bids and know a lot about how those bids and ads might convert, whether or not those users will cancel after they book, etc. And we offer a continuum as you move down to the right-hand side where you could shift to a cost per booking type model where Google automation would be placing bids on your behalf, or more recently, a pay per stay type model where you would only want to bid a percentage of the stay value and only for those stays that actually materialize. So we kind of really went heavier on this during the pandemic where a lot of hoteliers identified additional risk of cancellation. Requires that you would upload a reconciliation file to identify those users that clicked on ads and actually stayed in the property. And I guess I'll pass it back to Sojern to talk a bit more about some best practices.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure you walk away with some actionable advice. So we're going to go through about 6 different sort of best practices, and I'll sort of start off with number 1, which is really starting at a high level, defining your goals and budget. So, this is kind of sort of the 3 things that you probably want to make sure that you're doing, right? So everyone kind of knows sort of like on a percentage basis of where your conversions are coming from. It's like direct is through OTAs, it's other pricing partners. And so I think the overwhelming goal that we always want people to consider with Metasearch is really what do you want to do as far as increasing your direct bookings? So what volume do you expect? So in this example, like for instance, if your hotel is at 5%, try to sort of figure out how many more bookings you want to get direct. So in this case, it can go up to then 7%. Now the benchmark for performance for Metasearch is between 7 and 9 return on advertising spend. So if you have those 2 elements, you can kind of see here on the right-hand side, you can kind of estimate what your revenue, what your website monthly revenue would be just based off of your average daily rate, and you can come up with a budget of what you would assign to Metasearch, right? So this is kind of a very sort of a 101 sort of a way to look at it. right? Because I think that ultimately Metasearch is very powerful. And the one goal that I think that is really important for hotels is to how to get more direct bookings and really to start ownership of the client experience from the moment they book all the way through to the completion of their stay. So this is really something that you can talk about with your marketing team and also your distribution team of what you really want to try to achieve by adding Metasearch to your quiver of channels that you're going to be using to get more guests to stay in your hotel.
Yeah, so more than any other channel, Metasearch performances can be impacted by external factors. So the level of your cost per click, your conversion rate, your level of visibility granted, so your volume in the end, will vary a lot based on two things. So A, as Cliff mentioned earlier, whether or not OTA competition decides to be aggressive on particular hotel listing, if multiple advertisers are trying to get this rank one, at the same time CPCs will inflate. But B, and that's the purpose of this slide, whether or not we have rate parity. So you probably have heard a lot about it, but it's a double effect on your meta campaign. On the one hand, an ad which is showing a rate which is not competitive will be less attractive. So we measure this with a click-through rate, which is the number of clicks you get divided by the number of time your ads was appearing. So this metric is divided by 3 in case of a parity issue. So if somebody is undercutting us. And the conversion rate will be divided by 2 at the same time. So for the same volume of opportunities, volume of eligible impression, a campaign will generate 6 times less conversion if we don't have a competitive rate. And on the other end, most publishers are pushing the advertiser, offering the best rate. So not talking about everybody promoting the same rate, but if you have a rate which is cheaper than the competition, you will be pushed higher in the ranking. So and you will need to pay as much to be visible in a premium position, which of course is boosting both volumes and profitability. If we move to the next slide, there is another important recommendation we are making, which is about the way you are presenting the rates on your own booking engine. So we are promoting on Metasearch the best available rate. So it is important that when the user is clicking on the ad, is redirected to your booking funnel, he finds the rates right away. So if you want to maximize the efficiency, you want to make sure that you are making the life as easy as possible for the user. And we want to prevent a situation where a user would have to scroll once or twice to find the rates he just saw on the meta. So I can share here an example of one of our clients who was ranking its best available rate at rank 16, so with multiple room categories and multiple rate codes for each room categories. It was really low in the sorting order. His conversion rate was, close to 0.5% compared to the average we were expecting Google. It's literally divided the number of conversion driven by 9. So that's a massive impact and a good practice we want to encourage. We can move to the next slide.
I'll take this one. I touched on this earlier, but I'd like to reiterate it again. Regardless of whether Google Hotel Ads make sense for your marketing mix, hoteliers should really familiarize themselves with the Google My Business platform. Google My Business is a no-cost platform that allows business owners to manage their business listings and interact with potential customers across both Google Search and Google Maps. Managers can review and update amenity information about their property, and they can also load photos, respond to reviews, and really just try to put the best foot forward for their property. This information is available to users across Google Search and Google Maps, particularly when they're maybe a little bit higher in that funnel that Sasha described, trying to identify which hotel should be in their consideration set. You don't necessarily have the opportunity to rely on them going to your site to find out information. Really try to make sure that everything about your property that would be pertinent is reflected in your listings on Google. Slide number 5, kind of following up on the rate parity piece that Bastian mentioned. Google made several improvements last year to the way that free cancellation policies are displayed in hotel ads, especially with the pandemic and evolving public policy and personal safety concerns. users are very concerned about cancellation policy and whether or not they're going to be kind of stuck with a booking that they either don't want to or can't actually go take. So hoteliers can give their guests comfort, pardon me, by identifying that their rates and their channel offers free cancellation when it does. And then users can actually filter by hotels and rates that are cancelable only, so that they can find properties that are really going to be suitable for their itinerary. And then on the next slide, just tying a couple of these themes together, Google updated the amenity information that is editable in Google My Business last year to include several attributes that are related, purely to health and safety, specifically related to the pandemic. This was in direct response to consumer concerns about traveling during the pandemic, and also to highlight the many measures that hoteliers have put in place to keep their guests safe and comfortable while they do travel if they have to. So review that information in your Google My Business listing and provide updates where applicable. And then kind of going back to what Basha mentioned about your own creative, be sure to keep your own assets up to date so that if users have a particular concern about some aspect of your health and safety practices and policies, they can find more detail about that on your website if they want to dig deeper.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that in-depth explanation. I feel like out of all of Sojern's products, Meta's still the newest to me, so I definitely learned a thing or two, which will be beneficial for our clients. So thanks again to our participants for the great questions that you've been submitting throughout the presentations and ahead of time during registration as well. So if you have additional questions, continue to submit those with that webinar control panel. Otherwise, we will do our best to get through everything that we have time for today. So moving into the first question of our Q&A, how do Google and Sojern track ROI for Metasearch? And based on what attribution and conversion model or setup should they be using?
So I can start. We at Sojern use an approach that allows us to see conversions across all the channels that you would participate with us. And the reason that that's an advantage is because since we see all of the conversions, that we're able to manage against duplication. So there's a couple of different solutions that we offer Metasearch in. One is on a commission basis, and one is our subscription product. But in either case, we're actually still managing that, right? So you can actually sort of see like what the overlap is. But for the most part, especially with commission, we're just making sure that you're attributing it to one channel, right? So there is definitely a priority that we take a look at. And of course, that's especially important when it comes time to reconciling those commission bookings at the end of the month. But I think that it's also important to know that with Metasearch, the attribution is overwhelmingly click-based. So the vast majority of clicks, they do happen within a 1 to 7 day time period. And a lot of those happen within 24 hours. So that's definitely something where when we looked at that segmentation of the funnel, it's just like it's very bottom of the funnel. Like at this point, when they start interacting with the rates, they are ready to make a booking. And I think that's very evident in the fact of like the conversions that we actually are seeing once they interact with Metasearch.
Definitely. Bastian, did you have anything to add to that one?
Not on that one. I mean, Sasha explained it super well, so it's perfect.
I'll just quickly add that attribution window is kind of configurable in the Google Hotel Ads platform, and almost inevitably advertisers come back to some return on ad spend metric, and whether or not you're bidding a pure pay-per-click or something that's a little bit more easily attributable, like a cost per consumed stay, it's going to kind of overall change the way you think about your spend.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we definitely have seen like some customers who want to go out to 30 days because they just want to make sure they see the entire picture, right? So, even though there's a smaller percentage, it's still something that sometimes they want to ask because they just want to make sure they're seeing a complete picture.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like I really start interacting with Meta like when I'm ready to book, so makes total sense. We got a couple iterations of this question. So our listeners are wondering, is there a way to enhance Metasearch without spending money on a new campaign?
So Cliff, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it several times. I'll reiterate it here again. hotel ads are one component of the overall hotel search experience on Google, but users can certainly discover your property and click a hotel link button. It might not go to a direct booking page, but it'll go to your website. It could go to a phone if you'd like to prefer that. Some users might prefer to call to get more information about the property or to make a booking. So again, I'd familiarize yourself with how your listing looks on Google search. And I had a couple outlines there that showed, either a direct search for your property or a search for your market. And then, go in and update your Google My Business listing, make sure you're showing appropriate photos, and, just really try to get users to get in for free if you choose not to or don't want to spend on a separate Google Hotel Ads campaign.
Yes, and then also on other Metasearch channels, maybe not to the same extent, but there also are things that they're offering hotels, sort of the same things along the lines of cancellation policy, like just making sure that your listing is professional in all aspects, right? Making sure that there's professional pictures on there, making sure that you have all the descriptions on there, because that's really what people are looking for, especially when they're down funnel and ready to look at pricing, is they really want to make sure that they understand what they're paying for. So I think that, just to expand on what Cliff said, it's like you really have to sort of make sure that you're taking a look at your presence on all the Metasearch engines to make sure that, they understand, what your hotel can provide to them, and they just feel much more comfortable making that booking.
Yeah, and maybe if I can add something on it, we already mentioned that right parity is key, sorting order is important. I would add a third, things to check depending on the market where you're at. If you rely on international traffic, international guests for your hotel, checking the way taxis are displayed on Meta can be also something which is very easy to fix and it's pretty actionable for hotels. So some markets will display rates inclusive of taxis. Some OTAs are not good at maintaining taxis up to date and may look cheaper. So in case taxis are increasing year over year, it's not always updated. So that's a good thing to check when taxis are changing for your destination.
Smart. Things you don't think about. And I feel like, people are asking this because it's COVID. People's marketing budgets are a lot tighter than they normally are. So anything they can do, to enhance results without having to throw more money at the campaign, the better. So moving along here, this listener is asking, should I be on multiple Metasearch platforms, and what are the benefits?
Yes, absolutely. There definitely are a core group of Metasearch platforms. Google is obviously, one of the most important ones that we work with, but Kayak, Trivago, TripAdvisor, and then all of a sudden you start getting into some more regional players. I think it is important to make sure that you are participating in there, because the volume may be smaller, but performance is really good. Like, we're consistently seeing that for many of the hotels that we have on other Metasearch engines, that we are able to hit a very high return on advertising spend. So, especially when you start getting into regions, and, Bastian kind of highlight a little bit of kind of what he's seeing there, but it's definitely important to try and test out other Metasearch engines at least, so you actually understand like what the potential is.
Yeah, sure. And if I can add like some data behind it, so overall on our core market, so I would say Google Hotel Ads, TripAdvisor, Trivago, all combined should generate like 90% of the traffic minimum. Only some markets, Russia, China, South Korea, Australia to some extent, we have a different mix with more local players being more impactful. But yeah, really the bulk is made by those three, and with Google taking a growing share of that cake.
I was just going to add that you might want to consider that the advertiser mix might vary by some of these platforms as well. So the competition might be a little bit different. You might want to consider that when you're making a choice about whether or not you want to participate in that channel as well.
Definitely, just covering off on all your bases, especially with those main three. Then another question we have is, what would you say is the best way to manage Metasearch for an independent hotel? I know at Sojern we represent a lot of independent hotels that don't have those corporate resources or marketing assets really. So what would you recommend for someone like that?
Well, I'll start off by saying, and we hear this a lot of interviews, right, is that, how as an independent hotel can I get presence competing against larger chains? And I think Metasearch, especially the integration in Google, like there's a lot of power in that, right? Because as people are searching for hotels, they're seeing the gamut. They're seeing it by luxury level, they're seeing it by pricing level. So I think just participating in Metasearch, it's not only the direct bookings that you're getting, but it also increases your presence, right? So we did talk a lot about like having this sort of end-to-end customer experience. So if you do have an integrated marketing campaign, Metasearch is really there to keep that presence up and running, right? So I think fundamentally, that's what you want, is to be able to do that, because Metasearch engines in general are giving you that opportunity to make sure that people understand that there are other options besides some of the brands that they may be familiar with.
Yeah, and if I can add, my recommendation would be to ensure all your Metasearch campaigns are managed under the same roof, under the same with the same people. Because I know sometimes we can operate under two vendors, or maybe sometimes direct with the publisher. Right? In that case, you take the risk that maybe several players will be claiming the same booking. So you often hear about cross-channel overlapping. So the same applies within Metasearch. So you could have the same booking claim for TripAdvisor or Trivago if you don't have the same tracking, same attribution logic applied to all publishers.
Got it.
I was just going to say, if I can add, and Sasha talked about it earlier, but really have some thoughts about what are your objectives of this Metasearch campaign. That's really the way to get started. Is there a particular traveler type you're missing out on, particular itinerary types that you want to attract more guests for? Is there certain times of year where you need to maybe try to fill more rooms than you normally would, during a really busy seasonal time for your particular property? And then if you just feel like it's too overwhelming to get started on a pay-per-click campaign, then perhaps consider hiring an agency that can help you out with those specific marketing mixes. But it's probably helpful to not just go to them and say, I want to do Meta. I would say I want to round out my mix for this reason, and they could probably help you quite a bit.
Definitely working toward some kind of goal. This is a good follow-up for really the last two questions, I feel like. So they're asking, how can Sojern help with Metasearch, and what reports or platform access do we have access to that in terms we can service them on?
Well, I think that I'll start off by saying that, we try to remove the complexity as much as we can, right? So, we have our advantage, and what I love about Sojern is, like, especially with our commission and our subscription product, is that, our process is really in place to make sure that we're executing as efficiently as possible. So we have the framework and we have the structure that just allows us to manage ARR implementation all the way through to campaign setup and management. And our multi-channel approach, it creates that efficiency, especially when used within the two solutions that we have been talking about. And our reporting is contextual to the solution that you're committing to. Like, so for commission, essentially we are taking the onus, and Google included, right? We're taking the onus on just making sure that we're trying to maximize the exposure of the hotel to get bookings that result in a stay. So for us, we're focused on just making sure we're showing you where those conversions are, right? So it is very much just focused on the results, because there is no risk. And it is very hands-off. Like, you don't have to kind of worry about anything, right? So, there definitely is, something that you need to consider, which is just like, if you want to know more details, it is a give and take, right? It's just like, commission is just like, our thought on it is that we just want to make it as simple as possible, right? Because what really matters to you is really tracking conversions to bookings. And we provide that data to make sure that you're able to see that. But there are different sort of reporting things that you can take a look at that we provide in other solutions. So that is all available on our platform. Bastian and I, because we also want to work very closely with hotels. Sometimes we actually do build some reports where we actually give greater insight to the hotel. But that is definitely something that is also that's part of the Sojern thing, where we have regular business meetings, and we're more than happy to provide that context when necessary.
Perfect. And it looks like we probably only have time for maybe one, possibly two more questions. So this person is asking, what trends have changed, and how are the OTA giants shifting in response? And Cliff, maybe this is specific to you. How is Google playing a role in that shift?
So, with our travel products, we know that travel planning is incredibly complex, and users visit a lot of different sites before they while they're researching their travel and before they make a booking. And so, we're really trying to do two things. One, make that travel planning process easier by organizing information for those users. And then number two, generating valuable leads to our partners. And those partners include hoteliers directly, as well as OTAs and other meta search engines. So, we really just view ourselves as a connector between those users and those channel partners. And we're going to continue to evolve our products to try to balance both of those efforts.
Yeah, if I can add just one thing. So what we see on the field that, of course, OTAs are still there. So Metasearch is and remains a key component of their acquisition strategy. And it was probably one of the first channels to be reactivated after COVID hit. So.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one more here. So last question, how do I avoid overlapping marketing efforts when running Meta?
Well, measurement is key, and having one partner managing your channels has a lot of advantages, right? Because again, we're removing that complexity. Like, we know that there can be overlap. And it definitely varies. It varies by hotel, it varies by region, it varies by what channels you're even participating in. So, we actually take that into account when we're looking at the algorithms and the machine learning and what Bastian is doing even on a manual basis to make sure that we're understanding that relationship, right? So it can, even down to the hotel, can vary. So that's the thing, is like, you maybe could have benchmarks where you're seeing this, but for us, it's part of our everyday today, right? So, and also especially when you're kind of looking at a commission product, where we actually do have a process where we are showing you the bookings that we're giving you. Do you really want to spend your time like figuring out like, oh, this is a double booking, I need to remove this? We remove that complexity. So it's actually to our benefit and it's to your benefit. So we avoid that marketing, we avoid that because it's actually part of the solution. But we totally believe that in any solution that you're participating in, that you actually do have that understanding of what that potential overlap is, because sometimes you actually do want to see that your users are interacting with your channels, right? So it's not something necessarily that's a good or a bad thing, but you want to make sure that you're accounting for it. And that, I think, is really where Sojern excels, is that we really want to make sure that that's part of the experience.
Awesome. And with that said, that's really all we have time for today. So one more huge thank you to the three of you for joining and sharing your wealth of knowledge, and obviously wrapping up this Digital 101 series with a bang. And thank you again to all of our attendees for coming along this Digital 101 journey with us over the past few months. And I know there's loads of questions that we weren't able to get to today, but we'll do our best to follow up with you. And once again, we'll be sending that recording out. So we know recovery is still ahead for travel, right? So stay positive, stay healthy, and stay in touch, because we will be continuing to put out industry insights, reports on any trends we're observing within travel intent. And we're here to be as much of a resource for you all as possible. So feel free to join us on our next webinar for an insights deep dive that will be on February 17th. And we will be presenting there alongside Place IQ. So thanks again for being with us and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you,
for
Cliff,
joining.
Molly.